So moving on now.
Moving
to
on
the
to
top
number 5. Here we go.
Top 5 dead or alive. Number 5 for Sean.
Number 5 is WrestleMania 34 last year.
Why was it your favorite?
I just personally felt like I was going into this thinking that what I wanted to happen was not going to happen. I went in thinking Asuka's going to win. I went in thinking Reigns is going to win. I went in thinking... There was one other match. I forget. But basically all my predictions I thought were not going to come true. And then exactly what I wanted to happen just happened. And I'm like, holy shit. Yeah, you had Daniel Bryan's comeback, which was awesome. You had Undertaker beat John Cena.
No. John Cena buried himself to the Undertaker.
Alive.
Charlotte and Asuka was awesome. Reigns versus Lesnar was... Lesnar won, so I'm happy. You had...
you were happy because of the outcome that you wanted.
And then
right?
you had Stephanie and Triple H versus Kurt, and then you had you had Elias's little segment going on. I forget what the other matches were, but just for me, and because we watched it live and all together, that kind of bumps it up for me. So I was personally happy with WrestleMania 34.
How do you feel about 34?
That one's not on my list. It had a couple of okay moments. I was mad that Asuka lost to Charlotte.
I remember that.
It was a good.
You were very upset.
It was a good match, but I thought it was a stupid. I thought it was a stupid ending. I think that should have been when you pulled the trigger on putting the belt on Asuka. But no, there were some other good moments in there. So it's okay. It's okay.
Well, had they had that long-term 1-year booking that you talked about, you could have easily had Charlotte versus Asuka too, and this time around, Asuka's champion, and she wins. You see the Empress of Tomorrow come back from this really trash year of after she lost, she just, trickled down to being a mid-card.
That would have been your I think that would have been your perfect two women's matches.
Yeah.
We've talked about this. I think those two individual singles matches for the women would have been perfect for this year's WrestleMania. Asuka versus Charlotte 2 and Ronda versus Becky.
Yeah.
Instead of this triple threat. And Asuka versus what? Sonya and Mandy in a triple threat too? What the fuck are we doing here?
Well, I think this is the first time, right?
Huh? No, I mean
also. Okay. T-O-O. Hey, I need to be corrected on grammar, sorry.
Unless they're gonna suddenly be like, oh, actually, let's do Asuka versus her best friend Naomi for the title. But
Naomi's talented, but I wouldn't be invested.
I don't.
Vince is invested in her.
Because we haven't even steered into Lacey. There was talk they were gonna do Lacey as the opponent, and that's not even being built right now.
You mean Bocce Evans?
Yeah, but
so
it was fine. It was okay show.
My comments real quick. It brought me back to you guys. I'm full-time active because of it. Did I expect more out of the pay-per-view? Yeah. Did I kind of predict some things accurately? Yes. Do I hate the fact that WrestleMania was the jump off of the most annoying MMA wannabe? Yes, absolutely. That's where I'm going to leave it at. You're number 5.
My number 5 is, and this may be a little controversial, WrestleMania 20.
Oh, Stevie.
So the reason that I like this show...
I had to go there.
Yeah.
It's in his top 5.
No. It's genuinely a really good pay-per-view.
There's a problem with it, though, according to you.
So, a lot of good matches on the card, a lot of entertaining stuff on the card. The emotional story behind this pay-per-view, pre what happened, was excellent.
Yes.
I can still look back at the emotional impact of this pay-per-view despite what happened and go, at the time, this was perfect. It was brilliant.
Yes.
Obviously, you had Goldberg and Brock Lesnar on the card.
But they rectified that, so it's fine.
Still at the time,
several years later. So that's the taste that was left in everybody's mouth about these two.
But Steve Austin stunned both of them.
Yeah, but it still happened. And you had Eddie versus Kurt in a pretty solid match. Molly Holly got her head shaved. You had a Playboy evening gown match with Tori and Sable versus Miss Jackie and Stacy Keibler. And
HLA.
it was okay. But Evolution versus The Rock and Sock Connection.
That's pretty cool.
A lot of good stuff. Christian versus Jericho.
I'm sorry, but it's the main event. It's
main
the
event,
triple threat
yep.
that always has me like, this is, I think, as tainted as the man is, it still goes down as one of Shawn and Hunter's best triple threat matches.
Yeah.
Because they competed to a newer level against Stevie, in my personal opinion. I think Stevie brought out the best in them.
The one part that sticks out to me is when they put Stevie through the announce table, Shawn's in the ring, he goes, okay, he's out of the way, now it's you and me. Because the whole time they're pushing the story of, this is a Shawn Michaels versus Triple H thing. You're away.
You're
done.
an afterthought.
Yeah, go away. You're not supposed to be here. But then you get those final moments where Triple H, he's struggling, trying to get to the rope, and he finally taps out, and Jim Ross, along with the entire arena, just erupt and go, he did it. Finally, he did it.
Yeah.
Well, because the thing is, it's like, you don't think Triple H was going to do it. You didn't think it could be done. And no one really expected Stevie in the match.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like, no, this was his moment.
Yeah.
This was his time to really prove that he can be the face of the company.
Yes.
And I will never take anything away from Stevie's talent.
Yes.
I will never take anything away from how good he was.
The wrestler.
Yes. Obviously, yeah, some shit went down. But this pay-per-view, still top 5 for me.
Yes.
So, again, I'm back in the nostalgia even further.
Let's do it.
Survivor Series 95. That's when back in the day you had traditional Survivor Series matches all throughout the card. And it was the beginning of the end of Bret Hart. Why do you ask? Because that was the year where not only did he get over on Kevin Nash to become a 3-time world champion, it's like they were building the beginning of him and Shawn.
Yeah.
Because, again, you have those two go at it, small guy, big guy mentality. Oh, you think Nash is just supposed to be the winner, but obviously he put Bret over. Go ahead.
Because he was going to WCW wrestling.
And also, like, again, you have the traditional Survivor Series matches. I mean, some weird pairings, and you'll see why. Ahmed Johnson, the British Bulldog, Shawn Michaels, and Psycho Sid. All in a team against Dean Douglas, Owen Hart, Razor Ramon, and Yokozuna.
That's a cluster.
This is a clusterfuck. The Royals, which is Triple H, Isaac Yankem, a.k.a. Kane, Jerry Lawler, and King Mabel, Viscera.
That reminds me I need to go in for dental cleaning.
Versus Team Darkside, Fatu, a.k.a. Rikishi, Henry Godwin, Savio Vega, and The Undertaker. Back when Undertaker had to wear a mask because of his traditional face. Well, it was an actual injury.
Yeah.
Like what? His like face bones almost collapsed. But again, I just like it because you have the traditional Survivor Series matches. You have something that we don't see now. We see it as what we talked about earlier. So fucking lackluster between one brand versus the other brand. We do that one. Like, there's rivalry within your brands. Build a 5-on-5 out of that.
Yeah, that's the problem.
That will go down as in my top 5, just because Nash put Hart over.
Not to downplay it, but one of the worst years in wrestling.
95.
Because they had that whole King Mabel push trying to go.
And no, 95 was a horrible year because I think they were in the middle of the lawsuit.
Oh, the steroid trial?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And at the same time, it's like slowly you had WCW start coming up as the better, which would eventually lead to 96 for the Monday Night Wars. But moving forward, let's go into the top 4.
Here we go.
Sean?
Number 4 for me, this had a WrestleMania field tables, ladders, and chairs 2011. You had Big Show versus Mark Henry, which Mark Henry's in the middle of his Hall of Pain gimmick. And then you have Daniel Bryan cashing in after he told everyone, I'm going to cash in at Mania. So it was one of the biggest surprises. CM Punk in his element in a triple threat against Del Rio and Miz in a TLC match. Kevin Nash versus Triple H. Kevin Nash past his prime. Could have maybe done a little bit better, but it was still a really good match.
Should have left the back in 03.
Zack Ryder finally gets his push, only for it to be crushed about a month later.
Wait, he had a push?
Yeah, right off the stage.
Ouch!
So, yeah.
These are facts, people.
When you go back and you look at this entire card, Randy Orton versus Wade Barrett in a tables match, the whole thing, and it's a John Cena list pay-per-view. And the whole time, I think even the commentators go, this is great. This feels like WrestleMania. Because it did. They had so much excitement and so many shocking moments where you're like, had this not been named TLC, I would have felt like I was watching WrestleMania. An excellent card. 2011, one of the greatest years in WWE, and you cap it off with a pay-per-view like this. I will always advocate it.
I mean, it was good. Don't get me wrong. I think what made it great was it was a John Cena list. That's just my opinion. I'm just saying.
Yeah. I don't, because was this before? This was before the streak, right, of John Cena pay-per-views. Like before they actually had a count of like, we've had 487 consecutive pay-per-views with John Cena on them.
Was that a thing? I don't even know that was a thing.
Well, I mean, it wasn't like they were really touting it, but like there was a count out there that was like I'm trying to remember when it was, but it was it had been like 6 years or 7 years since there had been a pay-per-view not including John or Randy.
Oh, okay.
Or something in that vein.
Yeah.
But it was something ridiculous, and you're like, God damn. But no, 2011 was a solid year.
Yes.
Um,
Moving forward.
So sticking pretty close to WrestleMania 20 here. We're going back 1 month to No Way Out 2004.
Okay.
And the reason this is on here, there's not a ton to it, but it shares a certain amount of emotional weight to WrestleMania 20. And that's because you have Eddie Guerrero go over Brock Lesnar for the title. That's basically the only thing on this card that really makes this one make my top 4, because that is one of my favorite stories. Is that story of triumph for Eddie?
Yes.
You also had the triple threat match with Kurt, John, and Big Show to decide who was going to face the winner of that match, which then goes into WrestleMania 20. But yeah, this was when Eddie really found his place, and it legitimately broke my heart when news came out that he died.
And he was about to win.
He was about to win it again.
Yeah.
And
wow, yeah, his hair is standing up.
And so I could watch Eddie versus Brock 100 times and still enjoy that match.
Yes.
The
story building was really good because I think they had Brock mock Eddie.
Yeah.
And there was this one promo where I remember Eddie came out and Eddie's like, my whole life people tell me, you can't do it, Eddie. And he drops the microphone and he holds his head and I'm like, oh my God. And you feel it. Like, that's when Eddie would make anything believable. If he was a good guy, you were cheering for him. If he was a bad guy, you're like, oh,
son of a bitch.
Yeah, exactly. That was the best part about Eddie. Whatever he tapped into, you would tap into it as well.
So the thing with, okay, keep in mind that's what, Eddie, Brock, they were both on SmackDown, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Keep in mind who was writing back then.
Paul Heyman?
Yeah. I think what it was is that you have a guy who wrote for his agent. But you also have a guy who knew what to do with Eddie as well. But Eddie really didn't need the help of a script to kind of know what to do with it.
Yeah.
And Eddie was at a peak point of his career, personally. And I've always have said, like, if he was alive to this day, he would go down as probably one of the best wrestlers of all time as well.
Yeah.
Because
He was a great storyteller, and
Yes.
he was really good.
Yep.
you can't take away that he never had talent.
Oh, no.
And the fact, and it's a good thing that WCW collapsed, because if it was still around, he'd be an afterthought. Personally, he would be. And I still wish to this day he was alive, because I think with the talent that's out now, either he could still kept going, or at one point he could have retired on top.
Yeah. My final thought on this is that year, it's a proven story that underdog finally achieving what they've always wanted. Eddie, absolutely an underdog against Brock Lesnar, absolutely. Stevie, absolutely the underdog against Triple H and Shawn. Daniel Bryan, absolutely the underdog.
Afterthoughts.
The afterthoughts, and it's proven, and it's a story people buy into. And I'm not saying we should beat that story to death, but I feel like we don't steer into it as often as they probably should.
Kofi Kingston.
This year we got Kofi. We'll see how that turns out.
I'm hoping it's going where it should go. I
But
really am.
but that's why these two were part of my top 4.
Love it. Commission.
And why that one is as high also. But go ahead.
So this one's on here just because of the history of it. And again, I'm sorry for the super nostalgia factor, but it's only because of one match and that whole entire fucking card of 13 matches, by the way. WrestleMania 6. You have Titan versus Titan, champion versus champion, and I think for the first time seeing Hulk Hogan actually put someone over. Hulk Hogan, well,
Right after that 3 count, though.
oh no, he
One,
it
two,
looked like
three.
he was kicking, he kicked out, but no. I'm glad that, like, he's like, okay, no, I lost. Hulk Hogan versus Ultimate Warrior. It had been a build-up, but it wasn't your typical year-long build-up. It was like a traditional, like, okay, we're just doing it in a few months. You have, if you look back at that pay-per-view, prominent rise of Marty Jannetty and Shawn Michaels. Prominent rise of Jim the Anvil Neidhart and Bret Hart when they were in tag teams before they knew what single life was like. See, I remember that one just because when I was a kid, like, I don't know how we got access to watch it, but we did. And, like, obviously everyone knew who Hulk Hogan was. You didn't have to be a wrestling fan at that
Right.
point, because he already built his name through acting, through wrestling, all that shit. I did not root for Hulk Hogan.
Wow.
I rooted for the Ultimate Warrior. I just thought Hogan was overrated. Even as a kid, I thought, like, nah, there's always someone better than you.
Really?
I get it, you represent America, you're the American dream, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Maybe because when I saw Rocky 3, the fact that,
Thunder Lips.
yeah, it's like, really? You lost to Sylvester Stallone? Even though it's a movie? Yeah, no. I hope Ultimate Warrior beats you.
Did you, I mean...
You
well,
saw it.
I saw it. I binge watched it, no doubt. Did you feel like Warrior, either he dropped the ball or the company dropped the ball, because Warrior was initially penciled in as the next...
Big thing.
The next...
I think they
guy of
both
the
did.
company.
Personally, I think they both did, but more on Warrior's end. Just because of the fact that it's like he couldn't control his demons. He couldn't really have self-control of himself. And he had too high demands at the time. And it's like, really, bro? Like, you just won it. You're not at Hulk Hogan's true level yet. You are, granted who your name is, but I just don't see it. His title reign was short.
Yeah.
But the fact that, like, he was a double... I think he was one of the few double champions at the time back then where it's just like, this is what it is. And the fact that Intercontinental Championship was on a yellow belt.
He would always change the colors.
He could pull it off though. Like now, it's like, oh god, we have the Universal Championship, and it
I still
just
hate
looks
the colored straps on all these belts today.
Again,
Except
I like Cruiserweight.
I like the Intercontinental Championship with the white strap.
They
I like that one.
They are very much trying to brand Raw, SmackDown, Raw,
don't.
SmackDown.
Just
Raw,
leave them
SmackDown.
black.
It's annoying.
Yeah.
Leave it be.
Yes.
Let it go. Let it go.
Let it go.
Papa, can you hear me? What? Deadpool's right. They're iconically sounding the same.
I just started watching that, so I understand the reference.
Do we want to go into the triple threat of the
Let's
the three?
do it. This is the cream of the crop.
Number 3, Sean, take it away.
Number 3 for me, I've talked about this several times. SummerSlam 2014.
Was that when Brock came back?
This
that
is
year, or
after
was it a
he
couple
beat
years
the
after?
streak, and they were going for Brock's your monster like heel now.
Yeah.
16 German suplexes, dominates
City,
the
bitch.
entire match.
Suplex City.
But not only that, the entire card. You start off with Dolph Ziggler versus The Miz. Dolph wins the Intercontinental Championship. Paige versus AJ Lee. Paige gets the title back. Rusev versus Swagger.
Jack Swagger.
Jack Hager.
He wasn't hit with the spear.
Jake Hager.
Jack Swag with
You
spear.
had Roman Reigns versus Randy Orton, which I've talked about. Before Roman got his main event push, he was entertaining to watch.
Yeah, because at that time he wasn't being.
It wasn't
forced.
top guy, you know.
Big dog. This is my yard.
He was just a dude who he was
Just powerhouse.
Yeah.
Would come and kick your ass. That's it. Minimal.
and barely talk.
You had Seth Rollins versus Dean Ambrose lumberjack match. One of the greatest
One
matches.
of their best top 5s. God, why couldn't you guys do better this past year?
Bray Wyatt versus Chris Jericho. Bray Wyatt finally goes over. And then you build to John Cena. Oh no, Brie Bella versus Stephanie.
I remember that.
Which was okay.
I mean, Stephanie's
what it
great.
was.
Stephanie's great as a heel, but she can't carry a whole fucking rivalry.
But you build to Brock Lesnar and John Cena. It's one of those things where you're like, that's never gonna happen. You're never gonna see that, but you see it, and you're like, holy shit, they literally just did this.
But how did you feel about it?
I couldn't believe it
Were you still in shock like that one
Yeah,
guy
'cause-
with his eyes out?
Because John was always that guy where no, I'm not gonna put anybody over. No, we're not gonna bury me.
So do you think his shovel's just as big, or if not bigger than Triple H's? Be honest.
I think they were both at the same level, but
Ooh.
they've both come down
They
to
both got him from Harbor Freight.
But here's my thing. I think Triple H's is a lot smaller compared to John's.
Really.
Yes. Now.
Well, both of theirs are smaller because let's be honest, John Cena just put the Undertaker over in 2
Look,
minutes.
man, let's not make this a shovel measuring contest.
You had to sneak that in, didn't you? I knew you would, but
I thought it was funny.
I don't know if this is a good thing, but none of theirs is much bigger than the other.
Wow.
Itty bitty shovels.
That's not a bad thing because that means you put people over. I'm just
But that's
saying.
not a bad thing.
That's a good thing.
God, he's still creepy to this day.
But yeah, SummerSlam 2014, one of my
Only gotten
favorites.
creepier with age.
Yes, he has.
No offense, DDP, but you're scary. Kinda like Batista. Y'all seen that face?
Oh, God, yeah.
Which one?
Batista.
Which one though?
His current face.
Oh yeah, it just
the,
looks weird.
Just the status of his face. The work that he's had done.
Give me what I want.
So what do you want?
Give me what I want.
That was the worst fucking promo I've
Yeah.
ever heard in my
I
life.
seriously was watching. I'm like,
If you haven't seen that promo yet of Batista and Triple H from 2 weeks ago,
Yeah, you can catch it in about 15 days on the WWE Network.
or on YouTube right now,
Not helping.
and it's 4 minutes of 3 lines being yelled back and forth.
what do you want?
With excessive saliva.
Give me what I want.
I'm not gonna give you what you want. Give me what I want.
You know,
no!
someone pointed this out. You know, Batista's theme song is by the band Saliva.
But so I'm
sense.
when I was watching that segment, that clip, I thought it had skipped and gone back because of how many times they said the same shit to each other. And I looked and I'm like, nope, it's still going. That was an awful segment.
You realize if you find it on YouTube, someone spliced it in with a Spice Girl song? I kid you not. And I was watching, I'm like, this is the worst. YouTube.
Batista was stuttering, and he looked like he was out of place. Triple H was on point, but he just...
For a professional actor, Batista, you certainly seem to be having issues with your lines.
This is why he plays enforcer type characters, though.
No, this is why he stars in Guardians of the Independence Day.
What's wrong with Guardians?
Independence Day?
Well, you know what? Maybe come WrestleMania, if Batista moves really slow, Triple H won't be able to see him.
Your Avengers thing? Yeah, just sneak that in. Okay. I knew you would.
Have you seen Guardians of the Galaxy 2?
Not, no.
Or no, that wasn't
It's
Guardians 2, that was
War.
Infinity War. You see Infinity War?
No.
There's a moment where Batista's standing there eating a snack.
That clip I've seen.
that's
that.
right.
And he's like, I've mastered the art of moving so slow, I become imperceptible to the eye.
And
You
the
still
other
see
guy's
you.
like, dude, we can still see you.
Damn it. Hi, Drax.
Damn it.
Dan, you're number 3.
Oh, hold up. Computer logged out.
Yeah.
There we go. Okay. So, my number 3...
I just received an email.
And I quote.
and I quote, WrestleMania 18.
Ooh.
Wow. Okay.
So,
Wow.
there was a lot to this one. You had Triple H versus Jericho with Stephanie McMahon for the undisputed title. But your biggest things on this card, obviously, Stone Cold Steve Austin versus Scott Hall and The Rock versus Hollywood Hogan.
Oh, I thought he was being sarcastic.
No, I was putting those two together.
So let's see.
Because those were your two, like, marquee matches,
No,
really.
one of them was.
This almost made my list, but again, I'm completely biased. I admit that. But this was initially supposed to be Steve Austin versus Hogan, and then the card gets switched up to where it's Scott Hall and Steve Austin versus The Rock. And
Why
Hogan.
was that? What is the history?
Austin and Hogan just felt like they were not going to put the other guy over. They just felt like it wouldn't work out. I think there was even some beef there where it was like, nope, I'm the shit. Nope, I'm the shit, you know? So
It was taking your top dog from two different eras and expecting one of them to give in to the other.
But the thing is, this was during Austin's time where, like, he wouldn't.
he was
wouldn't
close to that walking out point. So I think frustration was building up.
But just kind of glossing through the card real quick, I'm just going to kind of go down this. A lot of singles matches with your big name people.
Yeah.
You had Kurt versus Kane, Taker versus Flair, Edge versus Booker T.
Shampoo commercial.
Steve versus Scott, Rock and Hogan, and then Triple H and Jericho. So instead of shoving a bunch of people into one match, you had a bunch of individual matches that could carry themselves.
Yes.
So it's a good card, and The Rock versus Hogan is still one of my favorite matches from a fan response aspect ever. So that's why this is top 3.
So let me ask you this. Finally, we cover a pay-per-view where The Rock wins.
Yes.
How did you feel?
Because
the crowd turns, and now all of a sudden The Rock is the bad guy.
For a second.
I still liked it. I wanted The Rock to win. It wasn't that I had anything against Hogan expressly, but I was like, The Rock should fucking win this match. And then you had the turn of Hogan after this, and we got an era of confusing bullshit. But no, so that's top 3.
Here's the thing before I go into my number 3. You realize after The Rock's push, who was coming that year?
Winter?
Brock Lesnar. Before he started saying it like that.
Yeah, all right.
Do you have water? Yeah, it's hard to really do Paul Heyman impressions without water.
But back then, he wasn't the advocate. He was the agent.
But here's the thing. That year, you saw 2 things happen to The Rock. A face and a heel turn.
Yep.
And he would leave because what? He was doing movies?
Hollywood,
More movies
yeah.
at that point.
It was unintentional though.
No, I
because
know.
the fans were
He
like,
knew
"You're
he
going
was-
to Hollywood," but he didn't play heel that year. But
It
the
was when
fans
he came
turned him.
back.
Yeah, and that always goes down to me as like, really? That's how you guys want him to leave? Don't get me wrong, The Rock was willing to like put Brock over at SummerSlam that year. It just sucks that it's like the fans had to turn on him for it.
Yeah.
And that's the one thing I never liked in his career is that really the guy's leaving. He wants to come back eventually, but that's how you turn on him.
Yeah.
That's bullshit on the universe's part.
Goddamn Philadelphia.
Oh God, you're right. No, it wasn't. It was in New York.
I was just kidding.
I know,
but
what's the-
same concept.
Yeah.
At least they weren't Lafayette.
Or
Gotta
Pittsburgh.
ruin everything.
We'll vote one day who's the worst
Oh, we will.
audience. My number 3, and this is where you're gonna wonder why I think this was the best. King of the Ring '98. So why does this go down as one of my top 3? Again, the greatest Hell in a Cell match ever. If you watch the McFoley special about it, if you watch the Untold about it, which you can all find them where?
You can find it only on the WWE Network for a non-negotiable but very reasonable price of only $9.99.
You will hear all sides of the story. You will hear how The Undertaker felt, how McFoley felt, because he had lied to Vince about, oh, have you been on top of that cage yet? And the thing is, if he had never said the truth, you wouldn't have gotten the outcome we got out of that match. Don't get me wrong, but what was that? The year... Who was the king? Did we have a king of the ring?
Of 96?
98.
98.
Was it Shamrock?
Was it? No, Billy Gunn was 99. 98 was, I
Because
think.
Triple H was 97.
Yeah.
Well, either way,
Either way.
that's how
We'll say it's Ken.
that's how unmemorable most of that pay-per-view is. Other than Kane winning his first WWE title,
Which McFoley had to come back and make an interference for that, so bless you.
and he was so happy to be that guy, by the way. He said it himself, like, I got to be the interference guy. Bang, bang. But
Cactus, I think you should start the match on top of the cell.
the fact that that's how the match started, the fact that it showed to me that Mick Foley will always be one of the greatest hardcore wrestlers ever, that stands on top 3 no matter what, especially because of that match. Like, don't get me wrong, like, Undertaker and Shawn started the trend of great Hell in a Cell matches, but I don't think you can ever top that Hell in a Cell match. You can top it with certain oh my god moments, even the ones with Jeff Hardy and Randy. Don't get me wrong, the fact of how he fell though, that scared me. How Jeff fell, I was just
His
like,
fucking face.
Jesus, like you took a beating for that. But
His dream came true.
nothing will top being thrown off a cage, going through a cage, and being chokeslammed on the thumbtacks.
And not knowing that the cage is going to break if you're chokeslammed through, because that's not supposed to happen.
For safety.
I'm pretty sure if they tried that now, that you could do so much on top of that cell and nothing will break. Even as big as they are.
All because of that.
Yeah, they reinforced that cage now.
It's always funny until someone gets hurt.
Oh, but it was hilarious when McFoley got
It's
hurt.
all fun and games until someone loses half an ear.
And a tooth through their mouth into their nose.
Different match, Dan.
Doesn't matter.
He
Same
still,
guy.
He still lost a lot of body parts and blood.
Good
Thoughts?
times. Good times.
Not from McFoley, though.
I don't know. I think he's got some fond memories until he blacked out, and then. Yeah, I watched the thing where he was in front of the crowd and he was talking about it. Which one was that?
That's the special.
McFoley
about
stand-up.
The stand-up special, and I was like, Jesus! All the details he was giving, you're like, fucking A.
But the Untold one where it's the Undertaker calling it in.
Yeah.
It's not Undertaker. It's
Mark.
It's Mark.
Yeah.
And that's what makes me appreciate that match even more, because he's talked about it as the Undertaker, now that he's talking about it as Mark, it's like, okay, you get retrospective of how he really felt and how terrified he was. And the fact that, like, I forgot what he said, where he was like, you know, I was on top of the cage, they were rising, and I'm like, okay, well, I guess I'm
going with it.
Yeah. I don't know what else to do. Well, I guess I'll just stand here. But then when he saw him come back, and he's like, maybe I should get back up there. I cringed when Mick Foley was coming back after being thrown off. I'm like, dude, you're going to die.
You're a goddamn madman.
And then when he goes through it, was that when Jerry said it? I
think he's dead. Yeah.
I legitimately thought, like, when I was a kid watching it, I'm like, did someone just die on live pay-per-view? And then watching it now, I'm like, dude, he could have died.
And like, the way he lands?
The fact that the ring stood
I think that's what led to the chair hitting him and his tooth going through his, yeah.
The chair
stop or...
No, the chair was falling with him, like, right there,
in
and bam.
Yeah. Oh, it could have been bad if that ring hadn't supported him, though.
You can't script that type of stuff.
No, and that's the thing. None of it was scripted. Vince said, like, you guys do what you have to do.
But he didn't literally mean do what you want to do.
Do what you have to do, not what you want. But yeah, that goes in as my number 3 and as my number 1 Hell in a Cell match forever over Shawn Michaels.
Very well said.
Number 2s,
again, you cut me off on this one.
I think these two are actually going to go pretty quick because we've already addressed some of them.
WrestleMania 31. WrestleMania 31 for me, every single match, and I'm not just talking about the main events, I mean every single match from A to Z for me stood out. Every single match said and did something, with Daniel Bryan coming back winning the Intercontinental Championship from, what was the next match? I don't have the full match listing with me, but you had Sting versus Triple H, you had Rusev versus John Cena, you had AJ Lee and Paige teaming up against the Bella Twins, you had, Seth and Randy Orton, you had Roman and Brock, and the whole Undertaker and Bray Wyatt thing, I get where you're coming from, but for me I was silent during that whole match, because for me it was, okay, the streak was broken. This is the first time Undertaker's making an appearance. Are we going to see The Undertaker, or is this like the death nail of, oh, someone put you down, but you chose to get back up, now I'm going to make sure you stay down, and that you never get back up.
You didn't know it was going to come.
And JBL might have been annoying on commentary, but he said one line at the end of this match where he said, the gunslinger is finally back in town, and that to me was okay.
You feel okay if he comes back.
Yeah, that to me was like, I hate that the streak was broken, but I got one more glimpse of The Undertaker. Because the year before, a lot of people have said, that wasn't Undertaker, that was Mark Calloway in the ring.
But the other thing that I think people gloss over when they say that is he had a goddamn concussion for 85% of that match. I refuse to accept it as that wasn't The Undertaker, that was Mark Calloway. That was a fucking concussed Mark Calloway. It's not the same thing. It's a concussed man.
And that was the first time we were seeing him with that hairdo, so he's going to look different in your eyes.
But it's not fair. It's not fair to say, oh, he wasn't his old self. Well, no shit. He didn't know what was going on. Give the man a fucking break.
And Vince even left the arena after that match. He's like, I need help out here. When you see the 24 documentary, usually Vince is there from A to Z. But he left. He's like, go, get to the ambulance, or get to the, what do they call it? The medical center.
Yeah.
But yeah, back to 31. This entire pay-per-view did it for me. And I watched it live, so just from A to Z, it's number 2, because to me it's what my number 1 is, but in the current day of WWE.
Do you feel like if the streak wasn't broken and he was 22-0?
I think you've asked me this before, but go ahead.
Do you feel it would have, and he wasn't concussed, he would have had an even better match against Bray? Like, we would have seen what they were capable of.
Well, I think anytime if the competitors are not injured in any way, shape, or form, you're going to have a much better match.
Like, if they both were at 100%, do you guys think it would have been a better match?
I think this could have been a great match from a storytelling history standpoint, because you had, like I said, you've got your new age Undertaker basically, trying to prove himself versus the Undertaker. On paper, this is kind of and I'm not putting it quite the same. This is basically an Undertaker Sting match.
Yes.
Where you look at it and you go, these two gimmicks are similar enough that this was destined to happen.
Darkness versus darkness.
Yeah. Kind of the same thing. Like, at this point, Alistair versus The Undertaker would be a good match.
Wow.
But that's true new generation at that point
Yeah.
versus old school.
Yeah. But I think that this match, if Bray had been healthy, I don't even necessarily think that The Undertaker was in, like, bad shape.
Yeah, he looked good.
I think if Bray hadn't fucked himself up, this could have been a really good match. And I think Bray kind of shot it in the foot.
Literally.
And I think this might have also been a moment, I don't remember everything that transpired after, but a moment that hurt Bray Wyatt's legacy and kind of sent him back toward sent him down the hill.
Well, I think he was already going there because of the defeat from Cena the previous year. But I mean, I don't know.
Well, I think they probably had kind of started giving up on him, and then I think when you have this high profile match and you're careless enough to get yourself hurt before the match, I think that shows the company, well, maybe we can't trust this guy to be in the position we wanted to put him in.
Yeah.
And then he fucked JoJo. Yeah, it could have been better. I think if the streak had still been intact and Bray had been healthy, I think this match would have been amazing.
So yeah, that's me just from A to Z. One of my more favorite WrestleManias.
Sorry, I commandeered that.
No, it's absolutely no. Because I mean, he talked about it, I talked about it, so it was only fair that you get to have your 2 cents.
Number 2.
So this kind of like what you said about one of your earlier picks is the first one I had on DVD. I had this one on VHS tape.
Wow.
This, I think, was the first one I owned on VHS. And this is SummerSlam 2001.
Okay. Got it on DVD.
And
After Invasion. Holy shit, okay.
And
Got that on DVD too.
So there's a couple of things on this card that made it worth it for me. One is real. It's a real small thing, and I think when we talk about Invasion, we talked about this, and I don't know if you're gesturing at the right thing, but Edge versus Lance Storm.
Yep.
Was an amazing match. Amazing match.
Personality
it was a very
versus non-personality.
Serious match.
Lance Storm, for all of his lack of personality, is an amazing professional
He always
wrestler.
has been.
And one of my favorite moments from the match, which I think I talked about previously too, is Lance comes off the rope, Edge drops and rolls it into a single leg, or is it the other way around?
No, you got it.
Edge rolls it into the single leg Boston Crab. And it was so clean. So clean. This is another match that I could watch over and over and enjoy it every time. Then you had my favorite, The Rock, picking up that win for the WCW title as your main event, beating
who was the champion?
Booker T.
How many times?
5 times?
5 time.
5 times.
5 times?
5 time.
WCW champion. Sorry.
And they were completely ripping off The Rock. They were calling him the Book. They were calling it the Bookend.
Wasn't the bookend existed, didn't it?
No, he had it, but he never called it that. But at the time, he started because he was supposed to be WCW's Rock. Well, for that WCW, he called it the Bookend. He called it himself the Book. Well, the book is cooking, and it's like, oh, God, why? But I can only believe it because it's you.
But you had Kurt and Austin for the WWF title. You had The Rock versus Booker for the WCW.
What?
Seeing The Rock.
That's when it slowly began. Right at the build-up to SummerSlam. The whole...
What? The best part about this match is that it's one of those matches where the heel just keeps on coming and dishing it out, and the face is just this warrior that just won't stop. You know, Kurt gets thrown around, he's bleeding, he's getting, stunnered like 3-4 times, and he just keeps on coming back and doesn't give up.
My thing was with that match, I think Kurt deserved the win. I really think at that time he deserved to have the win for Team WWF because it's he was at his prime. Like a year in, he already won that many championships. But it's like, no, we're gonna keep it going so you could get your glory in your hometown.
Yeah.
Which unfortunately is Pittsburgh.
But yeah, that's my number 2, SummerSlam 2001, because I could watch some of these matches a million times and still think they were awesome.
Well, you can watch it 1,000,000 times only.
Can I?
Yes, only on the WWE Network for a non-negotiable, very reasonable price of only $9.99.
So to move into my number 2,
This ought to be interesting.
WrestleMania 13.
Okay.
Because
Does that have a bittersweet spot for you?
no, because of what, Sean?
It was supposed to be.
Not really, because at that point, like, Sean was at a weird point of his career at that time.
He always was.
Yeah, but again,
Is this where he lost his smile?
yes, but he was happy being on commentary and on vacation. Idiot. He was an idiot for that. I'm sorry, but you got to see what I think is the greatest heel face turn of all time. And also one of the greatest submission matches of all time, too. Bret Hart versus Stone Cold Steve Austin. Because I think other than Austin solidifying himself the year before as Austin 316, that's when, like, the crowd believed it. That's when they were buying into it. Like,
This is our guy.
Yeah, he's the guy. He's the badass. But he's not your typical face either. It's like he's the anti-hero.
Yep.
Yeah.
And we never had that in that point in time of wrestling.
Always
It's-
good guy versus bad guy.
Never like a guy you can't really like, but you do like him.
Yeah.
And what? I don't have the whole card pulled up because I only focus on the 2 matches.
Psycho Sid versus Taker, which
Yeah.
when we were doing the streak episode, I was like, one of the slowest.
You felt like it was a jaded match.
Bret Hart
That's what I always-
assisted for the win, and I'm like,
But okay, my thing with that match is it didn't even feel so genuine between Undertaker and Sid.
well, because everything just got swapped around.
So last minute. And the thing is, though, that's not why it's my favorite. It's because of the submission match. And because Ken Shamrock debuted. No one knew who he really was.
Was he taking on The Rock? No, that was
No.
14. Who was he taking on?
Oh,
Oh no, I'm sorry. No, he was special
he was
guest
just a referee.
Sorry, yeah.
That's like when we started seeing that you can have MMA fighters transition into wrestling genuinely.
Slowly.
Really? We only mentioned her once in this whole episode.
I didn't say anything.
Oh god, here we go. I don't know how you guys felt about that WrestleMania. That's always goes down as my second best.
Again, binge watched it last year. Can't really say that I remember much other than Sid and Taker and Austin and Brett. That's pretty much all that sticks out.
Dan.
I agree.
Wow. Okay. And we're down finally to the number 1 choices. It's no surprise what Sean's number 1 is, but we have a lot to say about it, Dan. What is
Number 1, I will just quickly give a backstory as to why this was my introduction to becoming a full-time wrestling fan. My cousin was one time cleaning out his cabinet. He has all these VHS cassettes back in the day out. He's cleaning out his cabinet. And then I stumble across The Rock and Steve Austin on the cover. I'm like, oh, what is this? WrestleMania 17. I'm like, can I borrow this? Just, very casually. Again, I wasn't a wrestling fan. My dad would watch it here and there, but I take this cassette home and I watch it. I'm like, wow. And it maybe the stars aligned, because had that cassette been maybe any other pay-per-view, it probably wouldn't have grabbed me, but it was freaking WrestleMania 17. Going on to the card itself, Jim Ross and everybody else has gone on to say this is a pay-per-view, and I know I said this for like 7 other entries, but it's like every single match there's a build-up, there is an arc, there is a story, there is the villain, the good guy, the bad guy, and it takes you on for this ride where the beginning match does what it's supposed to do, the mid matches do what they're supposed to do, you get to that point where the main event caps it all off. Kind of bittersweet for me because you have Austin teaming up with McMahon, which is something that you're not really supposed to see.
Do you think you're special? Indeed.
But yeah, just for me, every match, like the hardcore match, was my probably my favorite hardcore match. It actually makes me laugh more than anything. TLC 2, everyone has said probably the greatest TLC match of all time. Kind of subjective, I know.
No.
John Cena versus Edge. Come on.
Again, subjective.
Edge is a show stealer. I'm sorry, he is. Like I okay. Oh, what the fuck that was? Here's my thing about TLC 2 in 17. I will always think that is the greatest, even though we were introduced to it a year before.
Yeah.
And what, an October pay-per-view? I think it was somewhere around there.
Yeah.
Like in the fall.
Yeah.
The only reason why it's so good is because at this point you had all three teams, like, I think they were all faces somehow.
No, Edge and Christian were heel.
Well, not to the point where you really could think, oh, like they're the heel. Like they're kind of anti-hero to me.
They were likable.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, you can never find chemistry between those three teams like that anywhere ever now. And the fact that they always talk about it like, yeah, this was one of our most dangerous matches. Devon scared of heights. I had to do most of the work, or like, you know, Edge would do a lot of crazy shit, or Jeff would be the show stealer. There's so much to that match that I will always like. It's not my WrestleMania, but I can literally, if that match comes on, I'll sit through the whole thing. I won't fast forward. I won't pause. I'll literally just like, all right, let's go. Let's watch that match. I don't like Austin's heel turn because it was years and years and years of like, I don't like my boss. I don't work for you. I'm the guy who does whatever he wants. I'm anti-establishment. And you just see that bitter ending where it's like, okay, weird taste in your mouth to end the pay-per-view like that, but it's still one of the greatest WrestleManias of all time.
Some people would say that was the pay-per-view that ended the Attitude Era. Because from there you go slowly into Austin's a heel. Okay, The Rock kind of disappears the night after. And it's like we built to Invasion, and it's like, okay, this is not exactly Attitude Era anymore. It's more like ECW.
It's in a
WCW.
weird cross mix.
Yeah.
Between Attitude and Ruthless, because you don't get Ruthless to like what?
02.
Yeah. But you don't feel like the Attitude Era officially ended, though. You still get elements, but they're not as crazy. It wasn't until, you know, Bischoff came, and then you had Cena, Orton, Lesnar, Batista, like this whole new fresh of talent coming in 02 to jump off a new era. And with 17, like I always felt like this is the one WrestleMania where like it was gonna make or break WWE. Like granted, they finally won against WCW, and yes, Vince got his somewhat crowning moment of signing over that he won WCW finally. But it's like
They put that on the back burner for WrestleMania 17.
But the thing is, you know, that was kind of like his victory lap. Like behind the scenes, like I finally won. I beat Ted Turner. My company's the better.
Just running down the hallway giggling.
Yeah.
Or doing the Bo Dallas victory.
Yeah. And I'm glad that now he might actually have competition again with Cody. The fact that it's Cody, it's someone very young and someone who owns one of the most horrible fucking teams in football. But I'm just saying, like, I will give you that is one of the greatest. And the fact that it's your number one, that's awesome. You're number one.
So we'll try to keep this relatively concise because we're going back to a sore spot for the show. WrestleMania 30. And for me, again, like I said, it's because of the same reason that 20 and No Way Out 2004 are on here. And it's because of that underdog. Story. So for touching on the sore spot for you, the Brock Lesnar Undertaker match. I remember the moment I learned about that because I was at work. And I took my phone out and I'm like, WrestleMania results. And the first thing that fucking came up is Brock Lesnar defeats The Undertaker. And I go, what?
Who did you tell?
I believe it was you.
Yes. Because even I was like,
You're not gonna fucking believe this.
The fuck up.
Brock Lesnar just ended the streak. And we were in shock. And look, it happened again.
His hairs are rising.
I couldn't believe it. Okay, like, he shows me that. I'm like, wait, hold the fuck up. No. Because I had known at that point Undertaker was still undefeated. I had known Brock Lesnar had left WWE at one point in his career early and went to UFC. And I'm like, when the fuck did he come back? We go look at the results. We're reading into it, and even to this day, I'm still like, how?
Did that
Why?
happen?
Like, why? Can you?
Why did Brock Lesnar
Fucking
end the streak?
why?
But it still sticks like as like worst decision ever.
Let me just say this: you guys saw it when it had already, or you got the results.
Yeah, when it was over.
I was the guy that was watching it live as it's happening.
But you didn't watch it with anybody. You said, I remember you told me
Alone.
this. Yeah,
I was
were watching it
alone.
alone, and you were so pissed off
I
that
had
like
my
you got up.
laptop on my belly, and I'm at that point where I'm like, okay, you get me every year. The Undertaker, is he gonna lose? No, you're not getting me this year.
But then all of a sudden, when you see
That
one,
fucking 3
two-
count, I literally put the laptop. I'm like,
And the again, we've talked about this too, but the response from the audience where there's that second of recognition, and then they all stand up and they're like, "What? What have they just done? Boo!"
and at first I'm like, no. I'm like, hold on, no. You got me. You're gonna put a turn on this. There was a rope break. There was something. His shoulder. No. I'm not falling for it. Lesnar's music hits. He leaves. I'm like, no, Lesnar, don't leave yet.
Dun, 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 dun.
And I'm like, holy
Dun.
shit. You see the 21-1 graphic? I'm like, we're doing this. We're really doing this right now.
Committing to this.
And the next day on WWE.com, I remember seeing an article. The Undertaker streak is broken. There's no going back. There's no fixing. Brock Lesnar has won. They just kept on sticking that at you. Brock Lesnar defeats The Undertaker. And they didn't light up on that. I'm like...
But yeah, so that one.
But what else about that pay-per-view that's your number one?
Well,
Not because of the tainted result that he gets. But
any early on Shield match I think was pretty good, despite the fact that they were fighting Kane and the New Age Outlaws on this one. But the biggest selling point for me was the Daniel Bryan story. That
because he got his moment.
Yeah, just like No Way Out 2004, where the biggest thing carrying that show for me is Eddie and Brock. The story of Daniel Bryan throughout the show is what makes this right there at the top of my list.
Can we talk about that opening segment for just a second?
Sure.
Austin, The Rock, and Hogan in a ring at the same time, at the same place, on the same pay-per-view.
In the Silverdome.
Superdome, Hogan, not Silverdome.
God, Hogan, you had one job.
And
Brother.
again, JBL makes it when he's like, there hasn't been any action and I already got my money's worth. And I'm like, yep, I attest to that. Yep. So
I am in agreement.
I think what it was is just that seeing Daniel Bryan get the victory, like the whole build-up was great because it's like, this is what true storytelling is.
Yeah.
This is like the hero's journey you want to follow. And I'm hoping this continues this year for Kofi. Being that Daniel is at the very
ironically,
end.
Daniel's on the other side now.
But again, it still leaves me as a shock that happened. Like I still take it as like I said, the worst decision ever in wrestling history. Like there's so many bad things that have happened, but this is like right up there.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like
There was one other. I'm just going to mention the match real quick, and then we can shift on. There was one other match that almost carried a pay-per-view onto my list, and then I just couldn't do it because everything else was really blah. And it was one of my favorite matches of all time, and it's the silliest shit. is, I think it's Undertaker, Kane, and The Rock versus Shane, Vince, and Triple
King of the
H.
King of the Ring 99?
Yeah,
Or 2000?
whichever one it was,
Yeah.
for the WWF title.
Oh,
And whoever gets
wins
the
it.
pin wins.
I remember that.
And you have that moment where Vince goes for the people's elbow, The Rock does the kip up, catches him with the rock bottom, and that's the end of the match. And being a Rock fan, that was fucking awesome. Like, that was one of my favorite moments of wrestling history.
He just got up against Vince.
And he hits him with the finisher, and it's done, and the show ends. And so that match alone almost got that one onto my list, but everything else on that card was meh.
Oh, shit. It was shitty.
So let's
Kamish.
wrap this up, Kamish. What you got?
We
literally
literally
just
ran
finished it.
through and finished right now on the network in the background.
For only $9.99.
WrestleMania 12, 1996. That was the year I was introduced to wrestling finally. I was just like, okay.
That was
Let me-
that was your start, right?
Yeah, let me just sit down and watch this because it was in the middle of the backlot brawl. And I was just like, why are they fighting outside? I thought wrestling happens inside. So I was glued in. And then match after match happened. And it was like the Ringmaster, Stone Cold Steve Austin. Not Austin 316, the Ringmaster. And then you get, what was the match after it? Oh. Nash versus
Diesel.
versus The Undertaker when the streak was at, I think, what, 5 or 6 now at this point?
Somewhere around there,
Yeah.
yep.
Two guys that are like over almost 7 feet tall and one literally over it by like a little bit of an inch. They're fighting like regular wrestlers. It's like, wait, they're too big. They can't pull off those moves. Freaking Undertaker jumping from the top rope, freaking doing all this weird acrobatic shit. I'm like, what the fuck is going on? And then the weird ending to the backlot brawl with Goldust and Roddy Piper, where Goldust is in nothing but lingerie. You're just like, what the fuck is this shit?
So let me just ask you this. If this was maybe another pay-per-view where there wasn't that outside storytelling, where there wasn't an Undertaker match, do you think you would have fallen in love with wrestling if it was just...
I don't think so.
So it was just, much like me, it was just the right pay-per-view and you just happened to sit down and watch it.
Yeah. Granted, too, that I was also at a friend's house who had illegal cable. So pay-per-views were kind of expensive back in the day.
But you don't have to do that because now you can catch it only on the WWE Network for a non-negotiable, very reasonable price of only $9.99.
You should do those commercials, by the way, that have that long ass like.
What do you call it? The fine print on the bottom where they
Yeah.
just breeze through it.
Terms and conditions may apply.
Yeah.
The results may vary.
But then you get the Iron Man match, and it's like, okay, Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart. I remember them.
Did
as-
you recognize them?
Yeah.
Did you know who these guys were? Was it just, oh, it's
No, I
just another
recognize them.
wrestler? Okay.
I recognize them because remember WrestleMania 6, because one was a rocker, one was part of the Hart Foundation.
Right, yeah.
And I'm like, okay, I guess they're not in their tag teams anymore, so they're facing each other. And I remember just that whole 1 hour, like just watching it, like all my friends were cheering. I'm just focused on everything, like move for move. And at first I'm like, why do I feel like this Shawn Michaels guy isn't really wrestling like he normally does? Because I thought he was a high flyer, high risk maneuver type of guy. And then you see it towards the end, it's like, all right, he's going to get the one pinfall. He's going to win it. But then you see that awkward jump of a drop kick that Brett catches him. I'm like, oh, fuck, he's going to lose. But he held on for like 32 seconds.
Yeah,
and
sharp
you're
finish.
just like, dude, I would have tapped by now. Like, that's it. But no, then like it ends abruptly. You get the sudden death, and it's just like, where is it going? And he hits him with the kick. Not enough. Gets back up. One more kick. Pin count. I'm like, holy shit. And the build up, how Vince was building it, like, oh, you know, like the boyhood dream came true. It's like, he made it seem like anyone can accomplish anything if you really believe it and you want it. And I think at that point, because Shawn did it like that, it always felt like, okay, anyone can do anything as long as you like focus on what you want.
Unless you're a B+ player.
That too. But that stands out to me as like one of the greatest, just because it's like you had so much build up, you have so much in good matches. I think that was like their point at 96. They're proving like, no, we're still gonna be here. But I think that was their pay-per-view that kind of saved them at a point. Because granted, a couple months later, you had Nash and Hall leave. And possibly form one of the greatest factions ever. Minus the fucking 7 limousines.
Yeah, and Disco Inferno.
God. Wait, was he Wolfpack first or regular NWO?
I think he was Wolfpack. Because he would always have the little stripe of red and black on his little tights.
But yeah, that's my number one. Forever be number one.
Dan, your sentiments?
No, we're good.
So
A long road to get to this point.
a long road, yes.
Thanks
yes.
for sticking with us.
If you're still sticking with us. So yeah, there you go. We just went over 30, 26, 27, because some of them overlap. 27 pay-per-views that we put in our top 10 respectively. Thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you all next time.